Welcome to today's webinar sponsored by TrenData, and we're very fortunate today. We're going to actually get to talk to a customer, a client, and talk about how client DuraServ launched their people analytics strategy. I'm going to go over a brief agenda here before I launch into the meat of the webinar. We'll start out and I'll tell you just a little bit about who TrenData is. And then I will turn it over to our guest today, Linda Brown, Director of Human Resources at DuraServ, and she's going to tell you a little bit about DuraServ. And then the rest of the session will be kind of an interactive session between Linda and I, talking about what they were looking for in a people analytics solution, the strategy they implemented, lessons learned after their implementation. And then we will open it up for questions at the end, and then we have some contact information and a little some special offers for everybody. If you have any questions during the webinar, please chat them to, I believe it's Jay Webster, who's on the webinar, or just chat them to everybody and I'll look at them. We'll try and save the questions till the end. I believe we have everybody on mute except for the presenters, and then we can move forward from there. So just a little bit about TrenData. TrenData is headquartered in Plano, Texas. See a little map over there to the right. We're just a northern suburb of Dallas in the great state of Texas. We are a cloud-based predictive analytics software company. We have a global client base, a premium partner channel, and the background on the executives in the company, including myself, we are all came from a company called HR Smart, which was one of the leading talent management providers in the industry that was acquired by Deltek in 2015. I am Tom McKeown. I am the CEO of TrenData, and I'd like to welcome you all here. At this point, I would like to get a little intro from my co-presenter today, Linda Brown, Director of HR for DuraServ. Linda, can you tell us a little bit about DuraServ, where you're located and what you do?
Yes, good morning, everyone. I hope everyone's doing well, and I hope everyone is warm. Thank you, Tom. So I'm the Director of Human Resources for DuraServ. We are one of the leaders in the loading dock and door business. We have commercial and residential business. We have about 500 employees right now, and our locations start from Texas, going over to Florida, up the East Coast, and into Canada. So we are now an international company. As I mentioned, we have close to 500 employees. Of that workforce, we have about 200 technicians, 80 salespeople, and the rest would be some sort of administrative staff, starting from the CEO all the way down to our coordinators, accounting, etc. So we have a very large workforce, and as you can see, we're very diverse and we're very segmented.
Okay. And you're witnessing some organic growth as well as growth by acquisition, is it not, Linda?
We do. We have a lot of growth. This year, actually, just a few weeks ago, we added 2 new locations in Florida. We just added 65 employees. Last year, we added 1 acquisition with 35 employees, and we actually opened up 1 division on our own and added 18. So every year we've added about 50 plus employees by acquisition or homegrown growth.
I'm sure that's keeping your team busy.
We are very busy.
So let's talk a little bit about what you were looking for when you decided to go forward with a people analytics strategy. Could you tell us a little bit about your thought process there?
Yeah, one of the things that we struggle with, because we do have so many different locations, was really keeping a good handle on our head count and our hires versus our terminations. That was really important for us to be able to see that. It would help us identify if we have any issues in that particular location. And the other thing that was helpful for us is to be able to, how much did it cost to add these people? As if we had new hires, how much did that cost? How much were we paying for a new hire, and how much did it really cost us to lose somebody? So for budgeting purposes, that was a really important part as well.
And I imagine, I think you mentioned 2 or 3 acquisitions. I imagine being able to see what's happened in a prior acquisition gives you a little insight as to what might happen in a future one.
That's right. You know, we learn by each one, and whenever we have an acquisition, we always hire all the employees. So, you know, things are different, and their job titles are different, so we need to change everything. So it's helpful to have this information because we can see it real clean and say, okay, we need to change this to this to mirror what we currently have. So it was real helpful that way as well.
Okay, fantastic. So let's talk a little bit about the strategy you used to implement it. I kind of broke this up into the 4 phases of implementing a talent people analytics strategy. And the first one was to kind of talk about you know, the kind of metrics you were looking to put into place. I remember from your implementation some of the key metrics that you were looking at. Can you kind of go through some of these and why they were important to you?
Yes, sure. So turnover obviously is an important number for everyone. It's important to identify, you know, what the turnover rate is, and by the metrics that we were able to get out of TrenData would show us on each division, you know, how many people did we hire, how many people did we terminate, and then that way we could see if there's a trend, and those trends, you know, might raise a red flag. We might have a problem in that location if we're terminating more people than we're hiring. So that was really important to us. Then on the managers, it was really helpful for them to actually have clean data so they could see in real time what their headcount was. And then on the diversity side, you know, everybody hates those EEOC filings. They're really, instead of going through your payroll system to identify, you know, which class each person's in, with TrenData, we requested that, by the way, and they were able to build that for us so we could see what is our diversity. So filing the EEOC reports made it very, very easy. And then, of course, on the revenue per employee and the cost per hire, well, don't you know, the senior VP of finance and the CEO, those are numbers they're very, very interested in. That helps with budgeting.
Okay.
So those are very helpful things for us.
Okay, good. Well, that kind of leads into my next question. So I remember, and maybe you could review a little bit of this. So when you were establishing the metrics, who were the people you had to deal with, and you know, maybe talk a little bit about the process you went through, make sure everything was aligned with you know, what the other executives in the company wanted.
Right. So well, the CEO and the senior vice president of finance were the 2 primary people that I included in this when we wanted to establish which metrics we wanted to focus on, because they obviously are the ones that are preparing the budget and are most concerned with the dollars. So I worked very closely with them to give them those amounts, and that was very helpful for them. And then my assistant, Shell Harper, she's our HR generalist. She actually is the one who was able to pull the data and prepare all the reports for us. So it worked really, really well. It was very easy.
Yeah, I remember when I was there, you worked very close with them. They were dropping by your office the whole time.
All the time, yeah.
Yeah,
it's kind of nice because they sit right across the hall, so we just kind of pop in and out.
That's great. Okay. So when you were defining the metrics, was there any special things that you were looking for? You know, were your formulas maybe different than industry standards? What were some of the things you were looking for, and how were we able to adapt for you?
Well, our primary, as I mentioned before, the primary thing that we wanted to see was the hires versus the number of terminations. That's really important to us because that will help us identify, you know, what is going on in that division. If we're hiring a lot of people, then that means that division is growing, because we're very careful about the number of people that we hire. I'm very proud to say that we've never had a layoff, and this metric actually helps us with that to see what our headcounts are in real time. Then if we have a termination, if there's high number of terminations, then as I mentioned before, that's a little bit of a red flag.
Okay, you still there, Linda? Okay.
Yeah, I'm here. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, and I might add though, you know, in our original introduction of the out-of-the-box version of our solution, we didn't have that hires versus terminations, and you guys asked us to build it for you, and every other one of our clients love that metric. So you know, it kind of goes to the fact that you learn the most when you're talking to your clients. So that was definitely a great metric for us to add for other clients as well as yourself. So. So here's kind of your dashboard. So you know, just tell us a little bit about, you know, how easy, or you know, how this has been able to help you navigate your business there.
Okay, so as you can see, this is really neat. So for us, and my CEO loves this, it's, you know, we can see what our headcount is in real time, the cost per hire, which is really important, and then we can see the number of employees that we have per manager. So this is a really easy to read dashboard, and it's very helpful, and I like it because it's all there in one place, everything that I've asked. And so we've customized it to our needs, and you can customize it to your needs as well.
Okay, fantastic. And yeah, we talked a little bit about you being able to you know, get down a little more granular as to, you know, who's where and what, you know, what's going on out in the field. So tell us a little bit about how you use this.
Well, as you can see, we have a number of locations, so this also helps us with our headcount. And from here, we can see if we have historical data, we can see what division is growing. So that's very helpful.
Okay. And okay, now that we've talked a little bit about establishing metrics, I wanted to go in and just talk a little bit about, you know, where your data came from and you know, how you put it into the system, because I know a lot of our clients, and you were a little skeptical at first when we said, you know, how quickly we could get you up and going. So tell me a little bit about your environment and, you know, what kind of information you were pulling into TrenData.
Okay, well, we use ADP, Workforce Now, as our payroll system, and that's where we get most of our data. We also have spreadsheets, or had spreadsheets that we would track our recruiting. So we were able to combine all that data and to put it into TrenData. And, you know, we really had never unified a database before because we thought it was going to be really hard and take a lot of time, and we just didn't have time for that. But the TrenData was really easy for us to put all the data together and just input it, and you see what we got. It was very, very easy for us.
And you know, we presented you right with the two options, so we could build the integration from ADP and your other sources, but you guys decided to make use of the tough at first.
Yeah, that was much easier for us than with ADP. ADP is a little bit of a challenge for us, and the tough was it was very simple to use.
Yeah, so the tough, for those of you listening, is the TrenData unified file format. So what you can do with that is bring all of your data together, and then it's just a simple file upload to bring the data into the system. So I think we had a couple of benefits of that. First, I think it was pretty quick that we were able to, you know, once you guys were able to pull the data out of ADP to move it into the system, correct?
It was just a few hours. And the one thing that's really nice using the tough was if you have an error, it tells you where the error is, so you can go ahead and go back in and fix it. So that made it really easy for us. Yeah,
and that's usually the big challenge with you know, implementing any kind of system that revolves around you know, any type of data, you know, particularly workforce data, is there's usually a cleaning process at the beginning. So before you go with an integration, it's often a good idea to use something a little more manual, so you can clean out the data, and then once the integration is in place, then you can, once the data is clean, then you can probably go for the integration. So you did make use of the trial as well, right?
That is correct, yes.
Okay, good. And that was able to give you a look at the system, and before you even had to write us a check.
Yeah, there you go. That's right.
So now let's move into, you know, the real exciting part. So the analytics. So now you've established your metrics. You've you know, uploaded all your data into the system. So essentially, you know, what analytics are is trended metrics. So you know, taking the really important snapshots of data in your system and trending them into analytics. Let's talk a little bit about one of the ones, probably the most important one for you, was the hires versus terminations.
That's right. So that is our most important one, and as we mentioned, we like to watch it very closely because, as you can see on here, the green is our growth. That's where we hire, and so we always like that number to be above the red. And if it is not, then we know that we need to look into that a little bit closer.
And you had a fair amount of data in there. It looks like it went back a couple of years.
Yeah, I think we had 3 years. We did.
Okay.
We had 3 years, so it was good.
Yeah. And so, of course, like this, you were able to look at it both month to month as well as year over year. So
that's helpful for us.
Mm-hmm.
For me, especially. Yeah.
Yeah. So now on the kind of the last part is kind of like what are some of the insights you're able to get from the data? Because again, in an analytics scenario, the idea is you trend the metrics into analytics, and then you can kind of use those trends and patterns to forecast your business. So I do know,
right.
First off, that you guys were using the events overlay to kind of tie, what's happened to the trend. So tell us a little bit about this one here.
Well, as you can see there, the trend was in March we had more terminations and hires, but actually what we had here was, you're seeing this trend because we purchased a new company and then we opened up a new office. So we actually added about 35 and 18. So that's why you see a little bit difference in the trend here.
Right. It's good. It's good to be able to see that. So if it's not a systemic blip, that it's just because of an external action. Correct?
Right. Yeah. You can see July was a big uptick in number of add-ons of hires.
Yeah, and then you kind of settle back into the normal trend after that.
Right. Right.
And I imagine as you open other offices and this next acquisition, you'll have a little anomaly as well.
That's correct.
Yeah. Now we haven't quite gotten you into the modeling yet, but we're excited to be able to look at that down the road. Any plans? How you would use this for prediction and stuff?
Well, we think it's going to be provide a real differentiator for us as we strive to build the best workforce in our industry. So. We do have some competition out there, so we want to always try to be in front of them. So this will be helpful for us, the modeling.
Fantastic. So nothing, no process goes without hiccups or everything goes entirely as planned. But can you share with the audience a little bit, maybe some of the lessons you learned when implementing a solution like this, and maybe some tips to anybody else who's looking at putting in a people analytics solution, whether it's from TrenData or someone else?
Right. Well, the biggest thing is your data has to be clean. Otherwise, you're not going to get the reporting that you want or the metrics that you want out of it. And then, with the TrenData, we were able to, once we cleaned up the data, get started right away. So it was really quick. Which we liked. And then, you worked with our finance department. What actually do they want to see out of this? What would be helpful for them? So once we identified those, it was really easy. And then working with Tom and his group, we were very specific on things that we wanted to see. So they were actually able to customize our metrics in order to provide us the data that we were looking for. Some companies may want different information than we wanted, but they customized it for our purposes, which was really helpful.
Yeah, and it's always good when you can tie any kind of activity to dollars. So yeah, I totally agree with that, being able to work with the finance department, because that all of a sudden makes things very recognizable to business leaders. Well, here's how much we're spending, here's how much we're making, and things like that. So I totally agree with you there. Also, I remember you were a bit skeptical when I told you could get up going as quick as you and Shale, of course, are extremely busy. and you thought it was going to be another lengthy implementation like your ADP. So it was a nice surprise, wasn't it?
Yeah, well, it was very pleasant. So that worked out nicely. So that was good. We appreciated that.
Well, we appreciate you as well. So, so let's move on. I don't know if we've had any questions. I'll ask Jonathan over there if anybody has text anything. I had a few prior to the webinar that people had sent me. So let me give you just a couple here, Linda. One viewer asked, may not necessarily as much apply to the people analytics, but your insights on maybe managing both a blue collar and a white collar workforce, and some of the challenges of that and things like that.
Well, it's very different.
Yeah.
It's different on how you write to them, how you speak to them. On the blue collar side, you have to keep it really simple. So that's do you separate by employee type in the system, so who's hourly and who's salaried? We do, and that's very helpful for us as well.
Okay. The second question I have here kind of is pertinent to you've gone through a couple of mergers, and I guess you got another one coming up. Can you share any insights of how you might use the system to prepare for the next merger, or any insights that have given you the ability to plan better or more efficiently?
Well, I think that in some of the states where we have multiple locations, it would help us to see, what is the trend that we have in our other locations. Florida is a prime example because we're really hitting that state pretty hard. We have a number of locations there, so trending there would be helpful for us with our hires versus terminations. Yeah.
Any differences in managing Canadian versus U.S. population?
Yeah, we don't. It's very different on the international side. Actually, even though we are international, they're pretty separate. The laws are different, so we just want to be able to track, and we will have more of a presence in Canada as we grow. But it is very different, and it's good to be able to identify what we have there separately. That this is what we have in Canada. So that's helpful for us.
Okay, fantastic. Shale, since you've kind of been on the front lines, anything you care to add there?
It was very easy to implement. Sorry, over here. Very easy to implement, easy to upload. So I appreciated all of that.
Okay, fantastic. All right. Well, I guess that's all the questions we have. So let me just move on to some TrenData Business. So I did want to make sure that everybody on the call knew that, like DuraServ, we continue to offer a free 60-day trial. So if you want to use our system, get your data into it, and get up and going, it's no charge. Use the tough file upload. You can produce all the analytics that DuraServ has, and we do not require a contract, and you will get unlimited support for the trial period. So if you are interested in that, please email us at marketing@trendata.com, and of course you can go to our website at trendata.com. There's a couple other things up there you might be interested. We will have this webinar on the website probably sometime middle of next week. You also are able to see all of our prior webinars. If you just go to the website under the resources tab, you'll be able to see this webinar and all the prior ones that we've done, as well as the free trial, and if you want to request a demo of the TrenData system. So with that, I would like to first off thank Linda Brown, DuraServ. This was a fantastic session, Linda. Thank you again for being a client and offering us your time here.
My pleasure.
Yeah, and Shale, you as well. You've been really right on it, helping us get this and demonstrate the value. So thank you very much.
Absolutely, it's been a pleasure working with you guys.
And I would like to thank everybody in the audience for their time, and I hope this has been beneficial to you, and please don't hesitate to reach out to TrenData if you would like to discuss looking at the system or taking advantage of our full trial. So thank you very much, and I think that's it. Thank you.
Thanks, Tom. Bye.
Take care.